Okay, welcome back everyone to the deep dive, your shortcut to, well, hopefully being pretty well informed. Today we are plunging headfirst into a global phenomenon in fantasy literature, seriously massive. We're tackling the very first book of a series that just completely blew up, started a whole sensation. And we're not just, skimming it. We're diving deep, really getting into the details, the analysis, trying to pull out what makes it tick. To help us navigate this really intricate world, I'm joined by someone who's fantastic at breaking down these complex literary discussions and finding those hidden layers.
Merhaba, Ben Hassan is Kenildiz. It's great to be here. We are definitely diving into the world of Sarah J. Maas today, and specifically that foundational book, Cam Shadow.
Excellent. Yeah, it feels less like just reading a book and more like exploring a huge, complex map, doesn't it? So let's start with the architect herself. Who is Sarah J. Maas? What's her story? How did she get to this point of, well, massive success?
Well, Sarah J. Maas, she was born in 1986 in New York.
Yeah.
She studied creative writing, actually, at Hamilton College, graduated magna cum laude, so,
Yeah.
strong academic background there in 2008. And there's this interesting note about her personal background being quite diverse adopted, with a Jewish father and a Catholic mother. This gives a bit of context, maybe.
Interesting. But how did she actually start writing? Because the path seems quite modern, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. What's fascinating is how she began. She actually started writing the story that would become Cam Shadow. It was originally called Queen of Glass when she was just 16. 16.
Wow.
Yeah. And crucially, she started sharing it online on fictionpress.com. This was key, apparently. It wasn't just writing in a vacuum. She was building a community right from the start, getting that early reader feedback, building a fan base before she even thought about traditional publishing. It really shows, how things have changed for authors.
That's incredible. So direct connection with readers from day one. How did it go from this online story to like a major publisher?
Right. So she eventually took the story down to pursue a traditional deal, found an agent, Tamara Rydzinski, around 2009, I think, and then Bloomsbury acquired the book in 2010. It finally hit shelves in 2012.
And the success since then. It's just staggering, isn't it? The numbers are huge.
Massive. Absolutely massive. Her books have sold over 40 million copies. Bloomsbury's own figures cite over 75 million for her entire bibliography worldwide by like early 2024.
Yeah.
And they're in 38 languages. So while we're focused on Cam Shadow today, you have to remember she also has these other huge series, A Court of Thorns and Roses, Crescent City. They all contribute to this enormous impact she's had.
It sounds like she's not just successful, but incredibly prolific, too. Writing these big fantasy books takes time.
She is, remarkably so. The output is really high, often publishing 2 novels, big ones, like over 150,000 words each in a single year. That kind of pace for epic fantasy, it's pretty intense. You do think she likely has some substantial team support behind her to manage that kind of scale and complexity.
Makes sense. Okay, so Cam Shadow is the big bang, the first one. How does it fit into the larger series it launched?
Absolutely. Cam Shadow, or Throne of Glass in English, that's the one that started it all, published in August 2012. And the series itself is extensive. It's 8 books in total, 7 main novels, plus this one novella collection, Sukishinin Bacha, which is The Assassin's Blade.
8 books. That's a commitment for readers. How long are we talking, page-wise?
Oh, it's significant. The whole series clocks in somewhere around 3,000 pages. It's a real saga. The main books came out pretty steadily between 2012 and 2018. That novella collection, Sukashin and Bruchati, is interesting, though. It came out after the first 2 main novels. And there's always this debate in the fandom, about the right reading order. Should you read the novellas first as a prequel? Maas herself apparently prefers reading it after book 2.
Huh, I love those fandom debates. Shows how invested people are.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. Later in the series, there's this thing called the tandem read, recommended for books 6 and 7, Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn. You read them together, switching chapters. It's a pretty unique structural choice. Shows how she evolved her storytelling.
A tandem read. Wow, okay, so 3,000 pages. Where did the inspiration for all this come from, and how has she influenced the genre? We hear this term romantasy thrown around a lot with her.
Right, her inspirations are pretty diverse, which probably feeds into that unique blend she creates. Literary influences, sure, people like Garth Nix, Robin McKinley, classic fantasy names, but she also talks about non-literary stuff, film scores, classical music, even TV shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Sailor Moon.
Sailor Moon, seriously?
Yep, that diverse palette, pulling from epic fantasy, action, maybe even some magical girl vibes. It all contributes to the flavor of her world building.
And her influence on the genre, particularly romantasy.
Huge.
Hmm.
Undeniably huge. She's played a massive role in popularizing that term, romantasy. Her books, especially the Court of Thorns and Roses series, are often seen as this gateway, pulling readers who might usually just read romance into fantasy and maybe fantasy readers into stories with more central romance plots. She blends them really effectively for a wide audience. And there's a big emphasis on Guslingarichi Kadin Karamanlar, these empowering female protagonists, and Kadin Feli, female agency. This focus on strong, complex women making their own choices really struck a chord. It's definitely shaped trends in YA and romantasy.
It's interesting, though, because while she's got this massive popular success, the critical reception is, well, it's mixed, isn't it?
It is. You see that pattern. Lots of praise for the plotting, the characters people connect with, the world building. But then you also get criticism, sometimes about the prose style. Some find it okarara ideal, maybe simplistic, or about repetitive tropes, sometimes labeled fantastic mustechingly, like fantasy smut almost. And occasionally people point out inconsistencies in characters or plot.
That divide is fascinating. It feels like two totally different conversations happening. One based on reader love, the other on more, maybe, literary standards.
Exactly. And that's pretty common in genre fiction, right? This gap between massive reader engagement and traditional critical benchmarks.
Yeah.
What makes a book good is so subjective. Her phenomenal success just proves she connects deeply with a huge audience. They're hooked by the story, the characters, the emotions. Maybe they prioritize that connection over, say, stylistic perfection.
That's a really great point. Okay, let's zoom in then. Let's do the deep dive specifically into Kamshato, the first book. What's the core idea? What's that initial hook?
The core idea, the hook that really grabs you, is often described as Cinderella, but she's an assassin.
Right.
It's this immediate deconstruction of a classic fairy tale. What if Cinderella wasn't going to the ball to find a prince, but because she was sent there to kill him? It just flips everything on its head.
Okay, I like that. And the basics. Published 2012.
August 2012, yeah. The Turkish title, Kamshato, Savaşmadan Özgür Olmasın, translates roughly to Glass Castle. You won't be free without fighting, which is, pretty spot on thematically. Genre-wise, the mix, YA fantasy, definitely action, adventure, romance elements simmering, and quite a bit of political intrigue, too.
And the opening, how does it pull you in right away?
Oh, the opening is strong. It starts with our protagonist, Celaena Sardothien, in the absolute pits, the Endovir salt mines. Horrific condition. She's been there a year, yet her spirit is described as Knil Maas, unbroken. And then Prince Dorian Heavy-Yard shows up, offers her this brutal high-stakes deal, compete in his father's deadly tournament to become the king's champion. If she wins, she served the crown for 4 years. Some sources say 6. There's slight variation, but 4 seems primary. And then she's free. If she loses, it's straight back to Endovir, probably for good.
Wow, the stakes are immediately life or death. Freedom or endless suffering. That definitely grabs you. So this competition, this world, where does it all happen? What's the setting like? And magic, you mentioned it earlier, seems like it's missing.
Right, so the story unfolds on this fictional continent called Aralea, or mostly in the Adarlan kingdom, which is painted as pretty tyrannical expansionist. The capital city is Rifthold, and the main location is the Kamshato itself, the glass castle. It's described as being made of glass and stone, and its symbolism is really important. It looks beautiful, powerful, but it's also fragile, dangerous. Basically a gilded cage.
A gilded cage, yeah. Contrasted with the salt mines.
Exactly. Endovir is the stark opposite. Just brutal, representing the king's cruelty. Time-wise, it feels kind of medieval, maybe early modern fantasy, swords, castles, that sort of thing. But the key marker, the thing that shapes the whole era is 10 years have passed since magic was banned. Celaena herself is 18.
10 years without magic, that's huge in a fantasy world. So what's the deal? Is it just gone?
Well, that's the critical part. Magic wasn't just gone, it was actively suppressed. Banned by the king a decade ago. They burned books, destroyed sacred places, executed anyone who used magic. It creates this atmosphere of loss, fear, oppression. But, and this is where it gets interesting, it's not really gone. You start getting these hints. Whispers of ancient magic, strange symbols called weird marks appearing, supernatural threats emerging. So the very lack of obvious magic becomes a major theme. It highlights what's been lost, but also hints at these powerful, dangerous forces just lurking beneath the surface, waiting to bubble up again.
So a world defined by magic's absence, but where it's still a simmering threat. Okay, who populates this world? Who are the key players bringing this story to life?
The characters are definitely central to the appeal. First, obviously, Celaena Sardothien. She's this fascinating mix. Fierce, deadly assassin, absolutely. But also someone who genuinely loves fashion. books, music, beautiful things. A Sattushen Gushlerin Bir Karushima, like a blend of conflicting forces. Her backstory, orphaned, trained by this master assassin Arabin, betrayed, survived. Endovier explains her resilience, but also her trauma. She uses the alias Lillian Gordana during the competition. Her main drives are freedom, survival, and eventually protecting the people she grows to care for. She's incredibly skilled, smart, but she has flaws too. Arrogance, a quick temper. And yeah, some critics point to inconsistencies there that's part of the discussion around her.
Okay, complex protagonist. Who else? You mentioned the prince.
Right, Prince Dorian Havillard. He's presented as charming, intelligent, loves reading, kind of a foil to his cruel, power-hungry father. His relationship with Celaena starts as sponsor, but then this romantic connection develops, partly over shared interests like books. And there are hints, even early on, that he might have some hidden potential himself, maybe magical potential.
Interesting. And the other point of the triangle, presumably. Keel?
Captain Kale Westfall. Yep, he's the serious one. Loyal, duty-bound, honorable captain of the guard. Initially, he deeply distrusts Celaena, this infamous assassin. But as he trains her, respect grows. And it turns into this very complicated bond. He's torn, between his duty to the king and Prince Dorian and his developing feelings and sense of responsibility for Celaena. He plays a key role, especially at the end, saving her life.
Okay, so we have the hero and her potential love interests. Who's the main villain?
The king.
Adarlan the king, yeah.
Yeah.
He's the primary antagonist in this book. He's ruthless, tyrannical, obsessed with power, and he's the one who banned magic. But there's more to it. There are these strong hints of a deeper connection to dark magic, possibly to these beings called the Valg. Things like the weird marks and his collaboration with Duke Parrington, they apparently have matching dark rings. So he's not just a cruel human king. There's something more sinister potentially driving him.
Okay, getting darker. Any other key figures? Definitely Princess Nehemia Yitker from Isleway. She becomes Celaena's crucial friend and confidante within the castle. She's intelligent, politically smart, fiercely loyal to her own people who are suffering under Adarlan's rule. Nehemia is vital. She provides Celaena with information about the weird marks, about history, about magic, and she offers really important emotional support. She even gives Celaena a secret name, Elentia, which means something like spirit that could not be broken.
Ah, a strong female friendship. That sounds important.
It's huge. That Celaena-Dorian kill dynamic is central, obviously, the romance and complicated friendships. But the bond between Celaena and Nehemia, this Guslabirka den Dayanishmasa, strong female solidarity, is absolutely vital for Celaena's survival and her emotional journey in this really hostile place.
It sounds like those personal connections are just as important as fighting skills. So how does the story actually play out beyond just the tournament structure? What happens?
All right, it starts with the tournament, but things get complicated fast. Celaena arrives, takes on her alias Lillian, starts training, competing. But then competitors start turning up dead, horribly killed in ways that clearly aren't part of the official competition.
Uh-oh. Supernatural stuff.
Exactly. It signals this outside magical threat. Celaena, being who she is, starts investigating on the sly. While this is happening, her connections with Dorian, Kale, and Nehemia are all getting stronger, more complicated. A major turning point is when she discovers a secret passage in her rooms. It leads to the hidden tomb of Adarlan's first queen, Celaena.
A hidden tomb. Classic fantasy.
Totally. And this is where the magic really breaks through. She encounters Elena's spirit. Elena gives her warnings about a growing evil, tasks her with a mission, provides a protective amulet, and crucially reveals the existence of weird gates portals to other realms. With Elena's guidance and Nehemia helping cipher old texts, Celaena learns about the weird marks and this monster, a Ritterak, that's being summoned.
So she figures out who's doing it.
Yeah, she connects the dots. It's another competitor, Kane, who's being manipulated by Duke Parrington. Kane's using dark magic, summoning the Ritterak to kill the other champions and steal their strength. This ties back into those hints about the Valg and the king's possible dark dealings. Celaena ends up fighting and killing the Ritterak in these hidden tunnels.
Okay, monster dealt with, but she still has the final duel.
Right, the final duel is against Kane. But just before it, there's another twist. This noblewoman, Celaena, who's also being manipulated by the Duke, manages to poison Celaena.
Oh, come on.
I know. So Celaena goes into the final fight weakened, and Kane just brutally beats her down. It looks like it's over. But then she gets help. Elena's spirit intervenes, partly through Nehemia managing to open some kind of portal or channel. Elena cleanses the poison. This gives Celaena the strength to rally and defeat Kane. And just as Kane is maybe about to try something else, Kale steps in and finishes him. Secures her victory, but also protects her.
Wow. So she wins. She becomes the king's champion. End of story.
She wins the title, yes. But it's definitely not a simple happy ending. The king immediately makes it clear she's his pawn. He threatens her friends, Nehemia, Chael, even Dorian, saying he'll harm them if she doesn't obey him completely. So she's trapped again, just in a different way.
And
The larger threat, the dark magic, the Valg, whatever the king is really planning that's still out there, unresolved. Plus, we get these hints about her true identity, that she's the lost heir to the throne of Terrasen, setting up her eventual path to fighting back against the king. It really just opens the door to the rest of the series.
That's a lot packed into one book. Definitely way more than just a tournament arc. So beyond the plot, what are the big ideas, the themes the book is exploring? What are readers taking away?
There are several really significant themes woven through it. A major one is freedom versus slavery. Obviously, Celaena's physical fight for freedom, but also her struggle for emotional freedom from her past trauma and the king's control.
Right. And identity seems huge, too.
Absolutely. Identity and masks. Who is she really? Assassin, prisoner, lady, heir. She uses the alias, constantly grappling with these different facets of herself. Then there's the theme of oppression and tyranny. That's the whole backdrop, isn't it? The king's brutal rule, the suppression of magic, it all speaks to how power can stifle people and cultures.
Which leads to power itself as a theme.
Exactly. Power and responsibility. We see different kinds of the king's abusive power, Celaena's lethal power, Dorian's potential power. How is it used or misused? What responsibilities come with it? And a really big one, especially for its impact, is female agency and heroism. Celaena is strong, yes, but she's complex. Her love for girly things like dresses and books exists right alongside her deadly skills. It challenges simplistic ideas of what a strong female character has to be. Her whole journey is about fighting for her own agency in a world trying to control her. That really resonated.
You can see why. What else?
Friendship and solidarity, definitely. Especially that bond with Nehemia. It shows how crucial connections are for survival, especially for women in this kind of hostile, patriarchal setting. And finally, maybe hope and resistance. Even in this dark, oppressive world where magic seems lost, characters still fight back, they find ways to resist. It suggests hope can endure, and that maybe, as the book hints, if you dare, you can achieve incredible things. You can shake the stars. You'll just love it, Sarspelice.
Those are powerful takeaways. Okay, before we wrap this incredible dive, any final points? Maybe some notes for the curious, for people who want just a little bit more to chew on.
sure, a few Merklesun and Nutlar, as you say. First, really think about that duality in Celaena's character, the assassin who loves books and pretty dresses. It's not just a quirk. It's central to making her relatable and complex. Despite her, extraordinary life, it's probably a big part of why readers connect with her so strongly. Second, pay attention to the details of the Camcinto setting. Those secret passages aren't just plot devices. The contrast between her luxurious rooms and the memory of Indovir. The symbolism of the glass castle itself, beautiful, yes, but also a prison. Fragile, dangerous. It all builds atmosphere and reinforces those themes of freedom and captivity. Third, the way magic is introduced is really deliberate, through the weird marks, through Celaena's ghost. In a world supposedly without magic, these are the crucial threads showing that ancient power and ancient danger are still very much present. They're setting the stage for the epic magical conflict to come. And just to circle back, that point about criticism versus popularity. It's worth thinking about why a storyteller might connect more deeply with readers than a technically perfect prose stylist.
It's suggested for this audience, maybe the emotional core, the characters, the plot momentum, that raw storytelling is what matters most. Her success is a massive case study in that. And finally, just remember the scale. This book, as packed as it is just the start of a 3,000-plus page epic. The story, the world, the characters, they all grow and change dramatically over the series. It really shows Maas's ambition and development as a writer and world builder.
Amazing insights. Thank you so much. It's crystal clear why Cam Shadow grabbed so many readers and launched this absolutely colossal series. It's so much more complex than just a simple fantasy story when you start unpacking it. See you next time for another deep dive. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment.